Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to The Flow, yet another episode here. I am one of your hosts, developer relations engineer David Jones-Gilardi, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Carter Abassa. Hello, Carter.
Hey, what's up, David?
Hello.
So I have the pleasure of working with David, and also co-hosting The Flow with him. And this is yet another episode. I'm happy. Like, I've lost count. Is it 5?
Episode 5.
Great. Yeah. I mean, like, once you get past like 3 or 4, like the number is just like, and then we're gonna get the double digits and then the triple digits, and like you just sort of like lose count. So it's great. It's great to be here. We have like a really sick episode for everyone today. You know how it is. Like, all my episodes are like my kids. I love them all the same. But today we're going to be getting into a lot of code, a lot of demos, and we're going to really like, blow the doors off this thing. And for folks who are tuning in for the first time, or listening to this for the first time, the point of The Flow and why David and I were so excited to start it is that we want to talk about AI, but we want to have conversations about code, right? We want to, like, I'm an engineer, David's an engineer, all the folks that we invite to join us are engineers, and we want to talk about everything about how you can use AI to build amazing experiences, but we want to really get into the specifics and have pragmatic things that you can take away from every episode. So today we're joined by Yoeven Khemlani, the founder of JigsawStack. Really can't wait to share like all the cool things that you can do with JigsawStack. But first, I'm gonna ask Yoeven the question I ask all of our guests. Yoeven, it's thanks to you so much for joining us. Can you kind of kick things off by sharing like the first memories that you have of actually like writing something that was like a program?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the last I could remember was maybe at like 10 years old, 12 years old. I was writing a Minecraft scripts.
Ha,
Of
this
course.
is-
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so like Minecraft, yeah. So that was my first business as well, like writing like a Minecraft server, putting it
Did you
online.
say your first business as well?
First business that I made my first like my own money on Minecraft.
Nice. That's
And
cool.
so that was
Okay.
at 10. So like that was like you had like a laptop, like a Windows Vista, like Windows 7, like laptop, just running the server. And then
What did you I haven't done any like Minecraft hacking myself. Like, what did you actually have to write? Like, what did it look like to sort of do a mod or to
yeah.
write a hack for Minecraft? What did that look like?
I think the Minecraft community at that time, I'm pretty sure it is still today, it was really active. So there's a lot of modules, and it's like the npm JS world, right? Like you have an npm pack, you have a bunch of npm packages, you can install a bunch of things that's already pre-built. Then you just combine and chain them together. You can write in JavaScript. There's a bunch of different languages that you can actually write and then get compiled. And then, then you can just build a world. Like you have team deathmatches. You can build your own game. It's something like what Roblox is kind of today.
Okay.
But but Minecraft was just like that OG that really did it.
My
Yeah,
both my 5 and 7-year-old are both into Minecraft.
yes.
And I'm
You should
working.
by the way,
We're maybe a little young yet, but I'm working on my 7-year-old to see if she's be interested in doing any kind of scripting in it.
so not to throw any shade on anybody else, but like, David, you should try to keep them on Minecraft. Roblox is like a little bit of like a Thunderdome kind of place. Like,
Interesting.
things are a little wild over in Roblox land.
Okay, that's good to know.
But yeah, like I would try to keep them hermetically sealed and like, on like sort of Minecraft servers that like that sort of that are like cleared by you.
I get you.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
David and I have our own stories on when we got into programming. They're significantly less cool than hacking on Minecraft. So as I mentioned, like, so Yoeven's joining us. Yoeven's the founder of JigsawStack. Yoeven, why don't you just give folks just like the TLDR, right? Like, what is JigsawStack, and like what are the actual problems that you're trying to solve for developers?
Yeah, I think at JigsawStack, what we're trying to show is that size does not matter, basically. So we build small models. So the focus here is like, can we build specialized small models that automate very specific tasks in backend operations? Unfortunately, it's not the state-of-the-art AI that we have access today. Amazing at human in the loop task, right? Like you see this in Cursor, you see this at any coding environment. You see this in a lot of products, but the moment you bring them to backend operations, you get things like hallucination, inconsistencies. You basically can't trust an LLM in the wild in the backend, especially when it comes to serious applications like banking, military, in healthcare, any of those sort of things. So we entered this space to solve this pain point of like, how can we have small models that then can solve this in the backend at a consistent rate? So
Cool.
basically that's what
That
JigsawStack does.
I can't tell you how excited I am about that.
Yeah.
Because like I totally hear you. First of all, there's actually two radically different dimensions. We'll get into this, right? But like you said, two things that are actually like some people would argue are like polar opposite things, right? Like one is small models, and just like for there's just a ton of, as a developer, as an engineer, like there are a ton of like scenarios where like or use cases where like I want to embed some kind of model, like I want to embed it in the software. Like I want this thing to be embedded in the software. I want it to be deployable. Like maybe the simplest example that people could relate to is, I don't know, maybe like a regular expression small model, right? Where like I, as a developer, I don't actually have to like learn regex. I can just sort of shoot it things that are kind of like regex, like make sure this is an email address, or like make sure that this is a phone number or something like that, right? I can totally imagine for a single purpose model, that if it was small enough, I would love to be able to deploy that in the software that I'm shipping. So that's one kind of problem. The second kind of problem is actually pretty different. And where like people need more reliability, right? Like they need less hallucinations, need more reliability. Some people that aren't like as deep in the space as you might think that that would require bigger models, right? Like, just smarter, more consistent, bigger. But obviously, like I'm sure you guys are doing interesting things to kind of square the circle and, kind of achieve like both of these ends. But that's really, really interesting. And I think like the more I think like, yeah, my aha moment with, one thing that I think is interesting for me and that I like to talk to people about is everyone is very clear about how you can use AI to build chatbots, and to kind of build like net new experiences, just, like ChatGPT, or like, like generate a picture of a kitten riding a tricycle, right? But I think that like, in terms of like the actual use cases that developers need to care about building software, like that's actually pretty small fractions of what they actually need to build. I think what is actually maybe interesting and transformational is like, how are LLMs going to touch like all the legacy use cases that developer, like something as simple as like, like building a smart router for your like server side web application, right? Like normally you just have these like incredibly like these super verbose like YAML files or something that like, wouldn't it be great if like if there was some intelligence that could sort of like route requests to the right place using certain heuristics or whatever. Like I think like I think about that a lot. I think about it, same with the regular expression, and like same with like a bunch of these things that like in theory we've solved these problems already, but maybe they're suboptimal, maybe the developer experience or the ergonomics are bad. Like how can we like apply the power of language models to like those problems? And either just sort of like increase developer productivity or like improve the actual operation of the systems. Anyway, sorry, like this, I could kind of ramble. I could ramble on this
Sure, you've been thinking
forever,
about
but
this, and I feel like you've been thinking about this one.
but isn't it? But David, isn't it? I mean, but like we're being told, a lot of people are being told that like, AI is going to take your job, or
Right.
we're all going to be out of jobs. Like I have serious empathy for people that like where that's actually happened. There are certain positions that maybe, but I don't know. I'm overall an optimistic person, right? And I think that like, there are like these dislocations that happen, but I think ultimately like the power of these tools are going to make more people like give people like more abilities to like become engineers and become developers and build software. And I have a lot of conviction that like a lot of that software isn't going to be chatbots, and it's not going to be like, it's not going to be these things. It'll be like, look, if I want to build like Yoeven, sorry, like, can you like let folks know what was the startup that you worked on before you started JigsawStack? We talked about this before.
Yeah. So the startup before this was a company called StayR. Nothing to do with tech. It's a hotel aggregation company in Southeast Asia. So that's what was so we basically aggregated short-term bookings at fancy hotels, like for the pools or the gyms. During COVID, because like hotels were dying and they couldn't sell to tourist market. So we built this platform that solved that.
The reason I bring this up is that like that's Yoeven was the CTO, right? So he's just building the software, he's building the systems. But it just it makes me think like, well, how many, and actually I laugh, I was joking with him that like I can't believe that was an actual business because I'm kind of stuck. I'm not always the most creative thinker, and I sometimes when I see experiences like Expedia or Orbitz or whatever, I kind of think to myself like, oh, that's a solved problem. Like there's nothing for Yoeven or anybody else to do like in this space. And Yoeven laughed because like that's never true. Like it is forever true that you can always build a better Yelp, like a better Twitter, a better whatever. So anyway, I think I think the point that I'm trying to make is that if that's true, right? If there are always opportunities to build better versions of even the things that we're familiar with now, I'm just really interested in how AI can help us do that, right? So because like frankly, like I'm not satisfied with the Goodreads, right? Like I've got a lot of apps on my phone that like haven't been updated in 10 years. And I would love for someone to build a better thing and a better experience for me. And I don't know, I'm just super optimistic that AI is going to like enable like more creative people to do those things more easily. But anyway, this is a fantastic transition point to actually like diving into JigsawStack. And I think Yoeven has set himself up with a couple of powerful assertions around small models and fewer hallucinations. So we should just sort of like we should dive into it and
solve
see
all of our problems, Yoeven.
Yeah, exactly.
All
Like
your
just
problems.
we have 48 minutes. So
For
yeah,
you to
we can
solve everything. Yeah.
that's right. But all jokes aside, like yeah, let's dive into it. And see what we can teach some folks.
Let's do it. 100%. Should I just share my screen and go dive right
Yeah,
into
yeah,
it?
just like, yeah, go for
Okay,
it.
awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah, and then David and I, obviously, like our role is to sort of be the interested observers that will like ask you questions and represent the audience.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Cool. So just to give a bit of an overview, this is our website. So you just get here. It's pretty simple. You come here, you create an account. Right up front, you can try all the products. We try to create, even though we're a dev tool, we try to give some UI to it so that no coders can still use the platform. Low code can still use the platform. Similar, like, Langflow tools like that. You can use it, drag and drop, make it easy. For developers, the first thing you want to do is get the API key, right? So create an account, get your API key, go over here and just copy it. And then straight away, you can just install the JavaScript SDK. So npm install JS. We have a Python SDK as well, or any other language that you enjoy. I'm a TypeScript guy, so I'm gonna stick to that. I know a lot of people are gonna hate me for that. A lot of my
really
the guys, a lot of guys in my team.
Yeah, we should pause. No, this is an interesting topic of conversation. I'm gonna pause you. Are you saying that because historically machine learning and AI was like was heavy in Python? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Even like a lot of the guys in my team love Python. We code significantly in Python to run a lot of the models that we do. But I like interacting with these models in JavaScript or TypeScript.
Exactly. Well, but look, I think, but it's
I think that's fine, honestly.
Well, it's beyond fine, right? Yeah. Like I think I talked to, I mean, David and I both, but just being on the team, we talked to a lot of folks that build tooling for developers in the AI space. And anyway, like Yoeven, you may personally like TypeScript and and like the ergonomics around it, but the thing is, you're not alone. Like TypeScript usage for AI tooling is just absolutely exploding, right? And that doesn't mean that Python's going away, right? In fact, the people who were using Python before, like, are still using Python, but basically like an entire new segment of developers, by the way, like primarily like application developers, right? Like the Python stuff effectively comes from like the actual machine learning origins of language models and stuff, right? Like a lot of the core capabilities of Python, but also just the fact that data science people and machine learning people like got booted up on Python, 15 or 20 years ago. But now that you have application developers like in the millions embracing AI capabilities and AI products, like TypeScript SDKs are just going through the roof. So, and
100%.
by the way, my bias, like I myself am a JavaScript and TypeScript developer, so I love seeing this.
It's good. I have one supporter. It's, amazing. So I mean, so TypeScript, honestly, it's just easier to get started with from my perspective. But yeah, we also have a Python SDK that's fully typed. So
Yeah.
easy to get
Nice.
started as well. Pretty simple. It's one of we try to follow most of the standards that you would get from, OpenAI and such, so that it just works out of the box. If you're a low coder, you can just turn this flag on and we give you all the prompts that you can just copy and paste into cursor. And
No way.
it should just do the work for you.
That's
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it just works. So I got it set up over here, a simple script. JigsawStack install. I got my environment key mapped over here. One of the first thing that we built. So JigsawStack started as a indie hacker project, right? I was like in Bali. I'm like, okay, should I retire now? And it's like, so I started I built this small product. It was not called JigsawStack at that time, where I wanted to solve scraping as a whole, because one of the most common things that you do in the backend was scraping a bunch of different things. And this was like just GPT-3 just came out, right? Very early stage. And I'm like, can I use the most common, the most accessible AI tool out there, LLM, to scrape a website? And it worked like 40% of the time. I published it on Hacker News. It blew up. And I'm surprised that it blew up because it doesn't work half the time. So then that kind of developed on and on. I'm like, can I make this better? Can I make it better? Llama came out. Then we started training our own models on top of Llama. We got it to like a 70% quality. And now we are training our own models from scratch, and we are like at a 98% accuracy. So I'm going to give you a quick, few snippets on like how we can get started, some of the models that we built. So pretty simply, if you want to start scraping, you just, install the SDK. You just go tick.web. You can see all the modules that we have. In this scenario, we want to use the web module. We want to use the AI scrape module. And you just paste the URL like this, as so. Let me just undo it. Get the exact script. And we can just execute it. So I'm going to execute this file. And it should scrape, and the results should get updated over here in a few seconds.
By the way, I got to say too, I was playing a little bit around with some of the JigsawStack code just recently, and I found the API. I found everything to be super straightforward. I mean, even case in point, take a look at the amount of lines you have on your code to do something right out of the gate. We're talking a handful of lines, right? So it's like super easy to get started.
And then Yoeven, just for people that are like watching you do this, like, so this is under the hood, these are API calls to your sort of like hosted models, right?
Exactly. So every model so JigsawStack is built up of two pillars, right? The first is the infrastructure, the models itself. The second is the infrastructure. So we run all the models and the GPU, so that the developer doesn't have to think about it. They just call an API and it just works.
That makes sense. What is the so I'm going back to your original point, what does it mean that the models are small? So like if they're hosted by you, how does it affect, like how should I think about like that being a small model?
Yes, that's an interesting topic, because the definition of small keeps changing, right? In the past, you give it 5 years ago, small was literally CPU-based models that you can run on a Python script locally. And now that's considered like micro tiny models. Now small can be like 70B models all the way to like a 1B model. You can run that locally, right? Like if you have a slightly beefy laptop, you can run those locally. It's just a lot slower. So what we do is, there are enterprise customers that we give the models to, and then they can run them on their infrastructure easily enough compared to an entire, one T LLM that like Kimi K2, for
Yeah.
example, which is almost
Right.
impossible to run, for most people.
Okay. Awesome. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. So this is a simple website, like simple scraper, scraping the YC site, you get all the things mapped out. So exactly as, the keys that I gave, I got the exact key structure. Let me just zoom out a little bit more. You get the key structure, the point structure, and you get all the HTML and all the data that you need as an engineer to then create a web crawler, build an engine around this, do whatever you need. A more complex example that people really enjoy is things like LinkedIn, right? You want to script things like LinkedIn or things where Cloudflare tries their best to block you, or some of the things that wherever you want to pull out information where there are bot checkers or prevention from scraping. What's interesting about this model is that it can learn the website in real time. So if a website tries to block you with a specific IP or with a specific tool, it learns what it's trying to do, and then it takes its time to then bypass that and then still get you the information that you need. So in this situation, as we all know, LinkedIn is one of the hardest websites to scrape. I'm going to scrape my own LinkedIn. And right now here, I need to get the first name, last name, my job title, and the current job. So let me rerun this script. Let's see if it's all good. Let's run it. Already.
It's not saved.
I didn't save it. Yeah.
Yeah. We all do that.
We all do that, especially on a podcast.
Raise your hand if you've ever troubleshoot what you thought was a bug and found out you just didn't save. Like an hour later, you're come on!
I know, man. It's the worst.
Before autosave became a thing,
yeah. So this
this is interesting, yeah, because it's like, look, we don't know what's happening behind the scenes, right? Like if you like you just articulated this idea that like, oh, like it's blocked on an IP, and like who knows, like who knows, like asynchronously, like what's happening behind the scenes to there you go.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Because the thing is, scraping LinkedIn by yourself, writing a script just to scrape LinkedIn takes days, and you're paying hundreds of dollars to proxy providers to just to get one. Yeah, so. Like that's why you see a lot of companies recently trying to solve scraping, especially because AI now is the new AI visits the web more than users do nowadays.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
It's becoming a bigger problem, and we want to solve this especially in a consistent way. Where LLMs do solve this to a point where they give you a bunch of markdown, but you can't use that in backend operations. And this is where we want to get consistent structure, consistent HTML that you can then use to build pipelines around this, right? If you're building a CRM, a sales pipeline, whatever you want, you can build this and automate a tooling behind it.
Yeah, and it seems like this. Yeah, so this AI scrape API. I mean, it's basically it's clearly not just a model, right? I mean, like it's a fully featured sort of scraping API that obviously has like a model attached to it so that it can like understand the contents and understand what you're asking for and sort of like reformat that and give it back to you.
Yeah, no, 100%. Actually, even LLMs or even especially small models today, they're pretty useless without the tools that you give it, right? So you need to still give it the infrastructure behind the scenes, the engines that load up the website, the toolings to rotate the IP address. So those are all built in. So to the user, it's as simple as just writing 2 lines of code and you get it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Another interesting thing that we recently launched is object detection. So this is really cool because object detection can be used in many ways. One of the most common ways recently has been computer use applications, where you have a screen that you want the LLM to interact with. LLMs are great at non-deterministic tasks. They're really good at okay, let me figure out which button to click. Takes you an hour just to click that one button. But if you give it a object detection model, it can skip that entire process, right? You can just tell, okay, here are all the buttons. Here are all the things you can click.
There you go.
Click on the right things. So I'm going to run our newly launched object detection model. So I'm trying to buy a bike. San Francisco is a biking city. So I'm trying to get a bike, and I'm like, okay, can I pull out all the information I want from these bikes and then these biking websites and then do a comparison chart? So I was using this object detection model. I took a screenshot of this website, pasted it over here, and I said, extract the cycle for me from this website. So I can just click on the cycle and get all the images out. And so now let me run this script. Hopefully I saved this.
By the way, kudos to you. Kudos to you in San Francisco for not looking for an electronic bike or electric bike, I should say, right? That looks
Electric,
like
yeah.
a real full-on bike with the hills that are
So
in
the
FF. That's intense, right? So
not decided yet. I might go.
Yeah, he's still shopping, man. This
It's
is
so
you know, like,
the hills here are crazy, to
okay.
be
Yeah.
honest.
Now this wait, we should zoom it. Like, yeah, can you like yeah,
Yeah.
what are we seeing here, Yoeven?
Amazing. So here you get, okay, it looks like a
Ah,
bunch of gibberish, right? But you get
sure,
every
sure.
information pulled out. So here you can see
There
the
you go.
mapping of everything that got pulled out. So everything from the bike to all the buttons to, literally every small thing that you can think about. So you pass this to the LLM that then can use this to make a decision a lot faster, an easier decision into what to click, what to do, and what actions to take next. You even get the mapping of, so like we rode bike specifically, right? So let's remove the G. So for example, here you get the mask that was extracted from the bike that then you can use to do a bunch of different interesting things in the back end, from analytics to computer vision stuff.
I mean, this is just really this is reminding me of our conversation earlier about how like it's never, people can continue to make better versions of things. Like
Yeah.
this is already triggering in my head, like, oh, like, well, your use case is very clear. It's like, hi, I want to buy a bike. I'm in San Francisco, I want to buy a bike. Like, what would you normally do, right? Like you'd sort of just suffer through like visiting many websites and like, I don't know, building your own personal Google spreadsheet to like compare the prices in the like whatever. Like there's a super manual version of like what most people do today. And then there's sort of this clear vision of like what could the future look like if an agent or an LLM could do these things for you, right? And then like and what tools would you have to use to empower the models to like be able to like go to websites and understand what's on the website and sort of like pull that stuff together. Like this is super cool.
100%. I like what you described, right? In what you just said, you kind of described 3 different services that you have to chain together to achieve the output. And that's what we're trying to solve, right? Like how can you chain these, like the web search with the scraping, with the object detection, and then build a pipeline that then you can deploy in your backend for your use case that you need. And that's the kind of and the vision that we see with JigsawStack.
I could totally see like a deep analysis, like multi-agentic kind of setup where, to your point, right, you've got the web piece, you're pulling back an image, you pass it to the object detection, which is maybe looking for specific things, which since you're passing like the bounding boxes and everything, you can then pass that on to another agent that then can do further processing on it and stuff. Like
Exactly. And that's, and one of the interesting things, which I might share later in the podcast, is like we realize that most people that use JigsawStack use it alongside an LLM. They use it as a tool that they process some form of information, and then they hand it back to the LLM to then carry out a certain action that is non-deterministic, right? So that's where we see a lot of the use cases as well. So MCPs, huge for JigsawStack as well. Yeah.
Do you guys support MCP?
We do. We have MCPs right out of the box. So you go to our GitHub, you'll see a bunch of MCP servers for almost every of our thing. Yeah,
Okay.
plug and play.
Awesome.
One interesting thing about object detection I can show you is even Minecraft. So like the thing is, one cool thing is that people don't only use it for computer use. They use it for construction use cases. They use it for a bunch of different things. So you could run this, for example, and you can detect things that are in the real world and that's not in the real world at the same time in G. So, and then you can use that to do a bunch of different things like safety checks. So
I'd like to I'll be super curious to see what that annotated image looks like.
The Minecraft, let's take a look. Let's give it a second.
Well, because like I think that example had like it was sort of like there's a video game screen, but then there's like behind it there's like a person holding a controller or something. And just while it's thinking, like just to be clear, like these are all like your own models that you've trained and and whatever, like you're optimized. You have your own idea about like what the best possible uses for these models are. So you can optimize them along those lines, and then you can communicate to the developer like, hey, FYI, these are very capable models, but like they're really amazing at like, I don't know, whatever, like these things.
Exactly. So that's kind of like what we're trying to do, where there are like most LLMs are very generalist and they can't be optimized
Right.
in one thing. Just the way they build architecture alone isn't built to do that one thing very, very well. And that's why you get a lot of this noise built in. What we did, architecture that we built, is pretty different, where we managed to combine the traditional stuff that you would get from like a what you would install, like YOLO in your computer, like a traditional OCR model, with the transformer architecture, like the attention architecture. So now you get the best of both worlds. I realized the issue with the script, I didn't put a prompt, and that's why it broke.
Yeah,
So
no worries.
let me run it again with the prompt this time.
That means it's real. What you're doing is real.
it's
Yeah,
real.
right.
It's an error.
I always tell people that, like,
Yeah.
people get so stressed about, like, not just like these like live streams, but like, like a conference, like you're at a conference or
Yeah.
something, and they get, it's like, look, like if something doesn't go perfectly right, like it's a strong signal to the audience to like, oh, this isn't just like fake, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm
The
like
vast
running
majority
real
of folks,
services.
they want you to succeed anyway. I did a talk
Oh,
at a conference once, and I had a planned issue, but something actually went a little sideways. But it was fun because I got it working and everything. But you could see everybody, people like throwing out ideas like, hey, maybe do this. Or like they
yeah.
want to see it work. It's just. But
Oh yeah,
they
people
get it.
do.
They get it.
People shout out from the back like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, like like, no, you forgot a semicolon, or like
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
right? Like,
You forgot to save your file.
yeah, no, for sure, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, people are pretty
That's great.
generous in that way.
Yeah.
But no,
No,
this is
exactly.
super cool.
Exactly. Okay, this might be a bit slow, I think, too, because this is a really new model that we just launched, and a lot of
That's
people.
okay. Well, just like,
I
I mean, well, what else? I mean, at a high level, I mean,
Yeah.
I see a couple
You get
other
some
like
other things in
a
there,
couple
don't you?
other like API calls happening, right? Like there's
Yeah.
what I can't. Sorry, VOCR, is that like
So
what
it's
is
a
VOCR?
vision OCR. So it's we took our own spin on what OCR is, where
Okay.
traditional OCR, it just does everything. It basically pulls all the information out, and you have to do a lot of post-process work to clean up the information to get specifically what you need. So what we've managed to do is we built an OCR engine that combines what you're used to, like in an LLM, where you give the output that you want with like a traditional OCR model. So it works 10x better than you could imagine from some of the best LLMs that you would have. And you would also get like exactly what you need. So let me just run
By the
this.
way, real quick, finish what you're doing, and I want you to bring that image back up, the one you just had, the receipt. And here's why.
The receipt,
I'm shaking my
yeah.
head over here. The reason why I'm shaking my head is because what you're showing right there and that kind of capability, like how useful that really is. Like when people think of like, well, what would you do with something like this, right? Years and years ago, like in the 90s, one of the very first
Jeez, David.
jobs I had, after like high school and stuff like that, I was doing tech stuff on like a network lab, but my boss one day gave me this really terrible menial job to do. And this was at one of the HBO, like this is one of the places you call when you want to get the boxing match. You'd have to call the 1-900 or 800 number or whatever and call them. And this was that place. And I had to go through like a thing like this of all these numbers. And I was looking for specific numbers to pull out. And it took, days. There's 100,000 of them or something like that. This right here could have been to run that thing through a model and have been done. Like
David, people are listening to your story and they're wondering, like, hey, David, like, had cars been invented yet? Like, could you go farther back in time?
If it makes you feel any better, there was an old radio up there. That was the thing when you called and you heard it on the line. That was the radio with an antenna that you heard on the phone line.
All right,
Wow.
David and I are old, but we're young at heart. So like,
there you go.
Let's,
so this is amazing. Though. That was kind of what I was getting at. Like, I was shaking my head because I was like, oh man, if I had this kind of tech, then how different would that tech have been? Well,
and that's the thing. Like, I think most people looking at this are like, oh, I get this is like Expensify, or like, they're just like, okay, like I get it, Yoeven. Like there are I don't know how many different vendors build expensing software. Right. But like obviously, like you should go sell this. You should tell Expensify to throw away their stuff away and use you instead. But then even still, like to the point that there's always room for startups. Like like if I have an idea about like how to make just expense tracking like 10x better than like the current options that are out there. This is the thing, right? This is the thing I'm going to use. It's going to like it's like 3 lines of code. Like it's like solving it's completely solving that problem. And then I can worry about like, oh, like what am I doing from a user experience perspective that's going to be like so much better than like the current state of the art, right?
Yeah, dude, 100%. I think one thing that you talked about is like Expensify, and that's so interesting. There's so many customers that we have that are using OCR for expense management software. It's like
Interesting.
they're like because it's just surprising that OCR has lasted since the 90s, and like it's
Yeah.
still one of the most like the most hardest technologies to kind of solve
Yeah.
as a problem. Handwriting and having highlighter marks over your receipts and all these weird issues. Exist. So yeah, and I think that's one again backend problem, right? Very backend pipeline. You take a picture, so that's why we want to solve it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, super cool. And like I know you're showing the expense receipt, but like there's many other use cases for
Yeah.
OCR. There's just like
Oh, 100%.
the totally, like I don't know, take a picture of like scanning books and like whatever. Like there's so many scenarios where like you're trying to convert images into text. And the
Not even
fact
that
that like
documents too. So like PDF documents today are one of the big issues, right? Like enterprises
yeah.
are wanting to build their own RAG systems that they want
Yep.
to bring in thousands and thousands of PDF documents that were scanned in that they want now in digitized formats in a system that can be searched. That's one use case that we see people use it for. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And
Very
it
cool.
looks like we've got one more API, the
One more,
embedding
if
API.
we have time, I don't mind showing
Oh,
this.
heck yeah. No, we've
Yeah.
got time.
Oh, 100% cool. So this is the embedding API that we built. Why we built this is not a common space that we are in, but the reason we built this is we saw a huge gap, right? There's a lot of companies building embedding models. OpenAI included, Google included, all the big LLM companies. The issue with the embedding models that we have today is that they're really good at one thing, which is text. They can do text really, really well, but they aren't very good at things like PDFs, audios, images, the things that companies actually want to embed, right? You go to any enterprise companies, they got millions of PDFs, they have meetings, meeting audios, they have all these documents that they want embedded into a vector DB that then they can build like a chat system around it that they can talk to. So we built this embedding model that can embed any modality of type. So from PDFs to text to audio to code to anything that you can think of. And the reason we can do this really well is because we have all the learnings from building a vision model from OCR, building a scraping model from AI scraper. We took all that learnings and we're like, can we now build an embedding model that can understand all modalities very, very well? So this is an example where we have a PDF document of a report right over here, it's like a large report that we want to generate an embedding that we can store in a vector DB and make it searchable to an LLM. So you just give it a type, call embedding, and just run it. So let me run it over here. It will process the PDF natively. The traditional way of doing this is that you have to extract all the text from the PDF, figure out what the text means, chunk it in the right way so you don't break, you don't break the context or the meaning of that text, and then generate the embedding. So all that work is now natively done by the model, so that you always get the highest quality results the moment you run it at runtime.
What is the yeah, sorry, I was curious, like where does it tell what's the dimensionality of the vectors it returns?
Perfect. So we have, I mean, it's written in the documentation and everything. So right now our output vectors are 768 and the input is 8000.
Okay, yeah, and the output embedding vector is 768 for all the different data types.
All the different data types. So if the chunking is needed, it will automatically create multiple versions of like 768 arrays.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's nice.
Yeah. So that's how it's handled. So you can do audio too if this is another interesting example. We have not, the one modality that we have not solved is video. And I see a lot of companies coming out to solve this actually.
Yeah, sure.
It's
a
not
hard
that
problem.
it's hard because it's expensive. So
yes.
yeah. And this is audio, yeah. So, you can just build entire vector DB around our embedding model that then scales to the level that you need to. So, yeah, and all these models can run on your infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking. One thing, David and I, work for a company that has ships a vector database. But I'm just a kind of classic full stack web developer, like just going like pre AI, right? I love vector databases, and I love them for reasons that have very little to do with AI. Like I love that you can just build like really great natural language search, right?
Yeah.
And instead of this keyword garbage.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
like that you can build like really good and like powerful like recommendation engines. Because of like because of how vectors cluster in the vector space. And like if you like this book, like you might like these others based on like the proximity of their descriptions like in this space. um and I'm kind of like I'm sort of like a hyperactive evangelist for like these things for just regular web developers, where it's just like, hey, look, like like if you're working on an e-commerce site, or whatever, a media site or something, like you can use a tool like a vector database to
Yeah,
just improve these experiences, just have better search, have better recommendations. You don't have you don't have to want to build a chatbot, or anything that an end user would consider to be AI. You can just leverage a vector database, and of course, and then once you sort of settle on your vector database, like the next really important question is like, what embedding models are you going to use?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yep.
like as you're developing these capabilities, like you're going to have to find the embedding model that at least for your data sets, like yield the best results, right?
exactly.
So this is great. I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
more options for developers to kind of play with.
No, 100%. I think that's like so like our goal is to build a small model, but our mission is to honestly make AI accessible. So from web developers to backend developers to no coder, low coders, our goal is to give them these capabilities so that AI feels like you just writing a piece of JavaScript that just works out the box. And this is
Yeah.
the reason we make things so simple, right? You don't have to understand how things work too much, but it just
Right.
works for you. And like that's the mission for us at the end of the day.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
Now
Yeah.
speaking of trying to make things say simpler, right? For developers and non-developers alike. I have some stuff. So I decided you guys built some JigsawStack components in LangFlow, right? And so I went off and I decided to do a little bit of fun in LangFlow, and then I have a surprise. So I want to show you a
Yeah.
surprise. But I'm gonna
David can't help himself. Like,
no, no, dude, no, it's
he
true.
like, obviously, we knew that Yoeven was going to be joining us, and we love to kind of do some prep and get to
Yeah.
know what who Yoeven is and what his company ships. And like,
Right.
next thing you know, like 8 hours later, David is just like feverishly like hacked together some like really cool stuff. So
Yeah, and so this one, by the way, this is just a kitchen sink. This is not the surprise. I want to be very clear about that.
oh,
Um,
okay.
so I
You
just,
know,
if for those of you who, if you're not familiar with LangFlow, it is this low code, no code tool that allows you to visually build out agentic workflows, right? And it's this component based architecture. And JigsawStack and Yovan and team, right? They built all these components, right? If you see in my left hand side, I just kind of searched for Jig up here, and I can see this JigsawStack bundle. And so all the various stuff that Yovan you've been talking about, right? I believe you've got covered. Like I think this covers all the models that I know of that you guys have, and the latest object detection one is there, which got me kind of excited. But this one here, this is just the kitchen sink. This was me playing around, right? Where I'm saying, okay, I've got some agent here. It could be whatever provider and stuff. But then any one of these, like if I went to JigsawStack and I pulled over, VOCR or something like that, I could run it, I could just run this component, like build it, just using the API under the hood, right? So it's just the JigsawStack API, but I can also put it in this tool mode. And the second I do that, now I can just wire it right up. I can just wire it right up to my agent, and now I can start having a conversation. So this was me experimenting, right? I was figuring out how all these things work, and you can see I'm like going through various things and asking it all sorts of questions. But then I was like, all right, I knew about VOCR, but then I just came across like the object, like how new is that object detection component? Because it showed up after the last update, I swear.
very, very new.
Okay,
We
it did.
literally
It did.
just launched
Okay, okay,
it. Yeah.
okay. So then what I was like, all right, I want to do something a little bit more fun, but something that was kind of interesting. When I first started in some code doing what you were just doing a second ago, by the way. I was using the
Yeah.
API. I went right off the code examples you gave, right off the page when I first signed up and everything. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can use this like right away. And then as I was experimenting here, you could see I've got like some images. I was getting some masks back and everything. I'm like, well, wouldn't it be fun how quickly could I hook this up to an app? right? This is a developer podcast. So how quickly could I build
Yeah.
an app and then hook this up to an app and actually do something with it, right? Um,
Yeah, and like and when David says that, like when a developer is using Langflow to build something, you're effectively building the backend.
yeah,
Like everything that you're seeing visually is effectively David piecing together these what we call flows, but they ultimately are represented as API endpoints
yes.
for your backend. So then, like, sure, like, so if you're actually building like a full stack application, you would wire together your front end with Langflow serving as at least part of your backend. So,
And these also, this all of the flows have MCP by default, right? So I could also serve this up as an MCP server if I wanted to, right? And it's just natively there. But one of the things that, and I'll be curious on your take on this, Yoeven. I know I know it's a show called The Flow, and we obviously I work on the Langflow team and all that, but like, you know, one of the benefits, one of the things that I do as a developer that I actually like about Langflow is that I find there are many times that I want to add capability guardrails. I actually have a bunch of various flows that are like, say, they have a database backend or something like that, and they have potential destructive operations that
Mhm.
an agent might just go off the rails. You might be like, hey, I want to clean this up. It's like deleting all of your stuff. Like, no, stop. But in here, I can
Yep.
actually I can give the instructions. I can put the guardrails in. I can do all that stuff. And then when I'm interacting with it, no matter what client, if I'm using Cursor or Warp or
Mm.
Claude Code or whatever, they all act the same way, right?
Yep.
So anyway, so with this thing, since I knew my goal was to try to hook it up to an application and I wanted to do something with the application, my prompt here is super simple. I'm just telling it, hey, I want you to use both VOCR and object detection. But the key thing is this JSON structure. I'm telling it, I want you to conform to a certain structure. I
Mhm.
give it a structure, right? So this is an example structure that I built honestly with the LLM and with the tools, right? Both of them. And said, I want you to combine these things. Okay. And so it's going to conform to this. So I'm taking this
Mm.
here, this example JSON, I'm taking the structure, and Langflow has this ability where if I encapsulate something in curly braces, I make it an input field. So I'm saying,
Okay.
hey, make this an input. So I'm injecting that into my prompt, right? So if I look at an output prompt, you can see it's injecting that JSON
Mm.
structure into it with my goal to hook it up to an app. So now let's see,
Mm.
I'm going to bring my app over. So I built this thing
Damn.
that
Okay.
that takes your output and will show you the annotated result and like a bunch of the information that I was getting from JigsawStack, right?
oh
And
yeah, right,
so let's
nice.
do one live actually, because I wanted to bring specifically in my debug cookie. So this is actually an image. Funny enough, Carter knows what this is, but this is an image that comes from another app I built, Codebeast, that we use a lot, where you can, like, I don't know if you've probably never seen it, Yoeven.
Codebeast was fun. So Yoeven, Codebeast, David built an app where you would give it your GitHub profile, like username, and it would go scan your repos and it would see what programming languages you used. And then like for every programming language, we would associate it with like an animal. So Python was a snake, and I don't even know what
Oh,
JavaScript
the
was.
O'Reilly animals. Yeah.
Yeah, Java was like a rhino or something.
Yeah.
And then it would use those animals to create this like crazy like code beast, like that's
That's
personalized for
crazy.
you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would love to play with that.
Yeah, that's codebeast.ai. We're not here for, but there it goes. It's starting to go. So here, like, one of the interesting things about what I thought was really fun is, one, the information that was coming back. I'm super impressed, by the way. Like, I was, doing a bunch of iterating and things like that. And I was asking it all sorts of questions. I know that you have the prompt. You can say, like in the previous one, there's a little coffee mug off to the side. I can say, what are things I could drink with, right? Or show me only the books, or
Mhm.
whatever, right? And it pulls them out and it gives you like the bounding boxes and information, any tags it comes up with, and whatever the masks are, right? So I find JigsawStack from that standpoint. I was having too much fun with it, is really what it comes down to. Um, yeah, and one of the other parts of this is that sometimes some of especially when you're talking agents, agents and agentic AI, a response might take 30 seconds or a minute, or it depends what you're doing. If you're doing
Yeah.
like deep analysis or something, but you need some kind of like update or something in your app. And Langflow allows streaming. And recently, I found out about this. Carter, you may have already known about it, but in the JavaScript Langflow client, right, there is a streaming option. That's Phil Nash added
Yeah.
that, right? So like, so I remember him talking about that, but I'm like, I really need streaming. I'm like, oh my God, I think he put this in there. So if you notice when it was building it out progressively. So it's
Yeah.
actually, so it allows you to grab the stream. The JSON blob's not done; it's not complete, but it grabs it as it's being sent back from the agent, and then it starts building out all the stuff, right? So just
Yeah.
kind of a quick example of something that would be possible. And by the way, I had the first iteration of this working in about 2 hours. Took me, I screwed around in Langflow for a couple, trying to figure, like look at the various JigsawStack components and everything and building it.
Yeah.
This flow was actually relatively easy. I use Lovable, by the way, for the front end. I love Lovable for front end, like quick UI stuff. Like they make
Yeah.
very, very nice looking UIs. But like the first iteration was actually pretty quick. And, like up here when you're in Langflow, when you're working with the flow itself, and if you go to this API access, this will show you how to interact with it. You could literally cut and paste this out. And almost any of the AI based coding platforms, Cursor or whatever, you can literally paste it in and say, here's my thing, please implement this, right? And it'll usually do it in the first shot. So
David,
anyway,
do we have time? Like, can you paste a different image
Yeah, what do you
into that?
Yeah.
Anything? I don't know what you have on hand, right? But like, it'd be cool. Like, I feel like it just sort of it happened so fast that I almost missed it.
I have all sorts of things that we could grab. What looks good to you?
Dude, just honestly.
How about the wrench? Let's grab the wrench. Let's see.
Sure.
Let's see what it does with the wrench. Because
I'm just curious. Like,
I can
and
say,
I'm assuming this is like what, like a React application or a Next.js application or something.
Right. What's in this image, right?
The cool thing is that we don't even support streaming natively, and then you guys there's a way that you
Oh,
made it stream. Yeah, so that's
Okay.
pretty cool.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I think, yeah. Well, the
Okay.
image, I mean, yeah, the original image populated instantly because that's just the URL that
Yeah.
David
Yeah.
popped in.
That's
But then,
right,
yeah,
that's
I
right.
think like on the Langflow side of things, a bunch of API calls are being made on the
Yeah.
back end, and I guess David, what exactly is streaming back?
Yeah, I'm going to show you right now, actually.
Yeah.
So you can see that for one, like this is starting to build out now, right? But what happens, notice how this is streaming out. This is, as it's getting the response from the models, the agentic model is now, because I have that option on, it is streaming the output instead of waiting for the whole thing to complete. That is what's streaming out. So this is what the streaming API part of the Langflow client is streaming into the app. And that's how it builds.
That makes sense. Right. So the app is, so like, yeah, I got you. So like if that JSON blob had been even bigger, I am interested. It is interesting though, right? Because like, you're streaming like a structured object. I mean, you're streaming like a JSON document that like, I'm kind of wondering like how your front end copes with only getting half of a JSON
Yes,
that's exactly
right.
Back, right.
So that is where instead of, you can't wait for the whole thing to be complete. So there's some fun parsing and stuff going on that as the pieces of the stream are coming in, it's evaluating it and it's essentially kind of, pasting it back to what it has and going, oh, I have a complete object. Now I've given it data. I've told it, hey, this is what it should look like. Here's the structure, right? So then it can key off of like certain things, like it's looking at bounding boxes, it's looking at tags. It knows what the structure of those things look like. So as it's going through and it gets, the last part of the stream, it goes, there's my tags block.
Yeah, and in this case, there was no text, right? So there's like nothing for the OCR to do, right?
That's right in this case. But you get the description, you get the tags. Like I love the masks. By the way, I can totally see potential use cases for stuff like that. When I worked, I used to work in defense. There were definitely applications here, but yeah. Anyway, that was my surprise app for you.
No, that's really cool.
Nah, dude, David,
really
this is super cool, dude. You're gonna have to ship this. You're gonna have to, kind of. I know. Well, if yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, I don't. Yeah, you should definitely ship this so developers and people can play with it, and you should definitely share the URL with Yoeven.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I can ship it. We'll put in the show notes or something.
It's just like it's basically like a really cool like sort of like demo of like, I don't know, 4 or 5 different Jigsaw APIs that, in this case, that key off of an image. But that's pretty rad.
That's pretty awesome. Cool. Yeah, you should ship this 100%. I'll share it around.
I'll ship it. I will definitely ship it then. So anyway, that was my that was the surprise thing I wanted to show you. Just a little Langflow sprinkled in there. I know we've got 4 minutes here.
Yeah. Well, I think I mean we can probably kill the screen share. So Yoeven, I mean I think you already said it, but like if for developers that are watching that want to check out JigsawStack, like where do they go?
JigsawStack.com. I actually have a surprise if you don't mind me sharing.
No,
So,
not
Oh
at
no,
all.
go for it. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Surprise. What does it mean?
So one thing that's interesting, I think that you guys showed quite a bit, is that using JigsawStack with an LLM is really powerful, right? Alongside, and we're launching this new product called Interface, where it's an alpha,
Whoa.
very, very, very early stage. What we have managed to do is we have merged all our models into a singular model, into one
Mm.
big LLM-like chain. So what happens here is you can talk to it like you would interact with it like how you would with OpenAI. It goes in, it does all the work that you need. So you need OCR, scraping, whatever you need to. Then it combines all the output and then give you the structure that you expect from the end. So this is really good for people who still want to use that, on the front end, on the client side, or any tooling that they want to build, but they do not want to chain everything together. They do not want to figure out how to use OCR. But they're really good at using a LLM. It just works with the LLM. Again, very
Yeah.
early stage. And the thing is, we benchmark against some of the big guys out there, right? Like, and we're kind of beating a lot of the scores that you would see from GPT-5, GPT 4.1 from an LLM perspective. So this is something that's also going to come on Langflow very soon. So it will work
Cool.
alongside
Okay.
all the components. So we'll put a PR on this and try out. So if anyone wants to do the alpha testing for us, let me know. Hit me up, and
Yeah.
I'll give you
Well,
access. Yeah.
wait, well, Yoeven, where would they go? I mean, I can't
So
see the URL.
Interface. Let me just paste it right here. Right.
Yeah.
So
By the way,
interface.ai.
all the Arc fans out there, like I'm not gonna hate on Arc, but like it drives me insane that like I can't see URLs. Like I'm such a
You
URL guy.
can.
But
We
yeah,
just turn them off. Yeah.
yeah, interface.ai. That's awesome. I mean, we'll folks can definitely. And then I see, we're like request access to the beta. Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, people should
Yeah.
definitely check that out. We'll make
100%.
sure to like share links out, include them in the show notes and stuff. When we do that. But that's awesome.
No,
Well, Yoeven,
100%.
look, this is exactly everything I was hoping it was going to be. We showed a lot of code, showed a lot of TypeScript code, which warms my heart as a full stack JavaScript, as the guy who runs like a JavaScript conference. That was great to see. But I hear you. I mean, like there's a ton of amazing, interesting, powerful stuff happening behind the scenes, but as far as what I need to care about as a developer, it's just an API. It's just a nice, simple API. You've got TypeScript client, like Python client. I mean, just make anyone who has access to curl or HTTP can like call these APIs. And they can like have these capabilities. It's awesome that you all were able to sort of contribute those components to Langflow. That definitely makes Langflow better. It's also awesome to hear that you all have MCP servers. So because I think I'm wearing the T-shirt, right? I mean, I think
MCPs. Yeah.
I just think that like I am an optimistic, but I'm an optimistic person, but I'm not insane. Like I think like MCP's got like a really long way to go to be like a reliable, secure, sort of like interoperable technology, but like it's moving really fast. And I think as someone who works on a product where integrating things like Jigsaw are not as easy as it should be, the idea that MCP becomes like this like next generation interoperability protocol where like you don't even have to worry about making Jigsaw components because you just have an MCP server and it's trivial. Someone just sort of says, someone comes into Langflow and says, I want Jigsaw. And then it's just all the capabilities are there. Like that's what we all want. Like I want that as someone who works on Langflow. You want that as someone who's building amazing tools that you want to sort of make available to Langflow developers. And MCP feels like the right sort of thing that's going to get us to that place once everyone's kind of comfortable with it. But that's our time. Thanks so much for joining us. This is
Awesome.
really, really fantastic. And I say this at the end of every episode. I think David has already spent like his 6 hours or maybe 2 hours on JigsawStack. Like now, like having watched you and David show the stuff off, like now I have to go to my calendar and carve out the time because this is super cool.
You could just run an MCP though. So
Yeah, you can do it
I'll do
faster.
that. I will. All
Yeah.
right, awesome. All right, well, thanks, Yoeven, and thanks everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time on The Flow.
See
See
you
you,
guys.
everybody. Bye.
Peace.